Hello and welcome to this session. So from now on, as I described in the earlier tutorial, we will be using SQL Developer to do all our practice and everything. Now, if you do not want to use the SQL Developer, if you do not want to install the softwares, you can still use the Oracle Live SQL. So the queries and everything will be same, except that wherever I mention the database name or the schema names, you need to change it, or you don't have to change it or create it because you will not be able to do this Oracle Live SQL because they have that limitation. The other reason why I wanted to go with SQL Developer is I wanted to do something in local so that there is no dependency on any other factors like the Oracle SQL is down or internet is down. To avoid all this and this is like much faster. That is the reason we are doing it is on the Oracle in the local database. Okay, but I understand like different people have different preferences due to whatever reasons. If you do not want to install, you can still follow it. No problem. Everything will be same. Okay. All right. So let's first start the Oracle developer. So here in the installation file, right? So the extracted version, if you open it, you will see the Oracle developer. So let me just make pin it to start or copy it, send it to the. So let me send it. I'll make a shortcut to this so it's easier for me. Let's say I create a shortcut to the desktop so I don't have to come here all the time. So I have this here shortcut. So let me just double click this and it will open the SQL developer. Just a few seconds. Let it load. Okay, so we have the SQL developer here. So we created one connection in our previous session, right? So this is the system connection, which is the DBA, which has all the access. So now click on the plus symbol. It will basically connect to the system database or the system user, right? Now we have saved the password. That's why it's not asking for the password. So now what we will do is, see, this is the system database, right? Sorry, this is a system user, which is basically the database administrator. So usually we don't create anything. This is only the power user where the main purpose of this system database, or sorry, the system user is to do the DBA task, database administration, like any somebody who comes new to the team. So they create the user ID, they provide the passwords, user ID passwords, they create the databases, right? And they look at all the other metrics, but the development does not happen here. Okay, so this is more for the permissions. Okay, this person needs to have this permission, this person needs to have that permission, right? So when you join a project, right, as a developer or as a tester, right, or a QA. So a database administrator would basically create a user for you and provide. So whatever we're going to show here is something that as a developer or as a QA, you are not going to do it. This is something which will be done by your DBA. But it is good to know how this works so that you have that knowledge. Okay. So the first thing is basically the database administrator. So let's say you are a new person, right? You are joining the team and you need a user to be created. So you need to be given a user and a password for login, right? They cannot give you the system, okay, system password. So they will create a user for you. So they'll use command called as create. So they'll say create, let's say create user, and then they'll give a username. So let's say the username is Lisa, identify by, let's say these are 1, 2, 3. All right. So let me put this here. So this is the user and this is the password. So this is how they will execute. Okay. Now, so we have an error, invalid common user or role name. Okay. Good that we have got this first error. So let's debug this. Okay, let's read the error, right? So this basically the syntax is correct, but why are you getting this error? So this is good for us. So you will have this kind of issues going on, right? When you start working, like you get an error, so it is important. You might be like, oh, the syntax is correct. Why we are getting this error? So you'll have to read the error report, then you will get some idea like what exactly is this error, and then you can debug. So debugging is also a very important skill, right? So here, let's say, let's look at this error, right? Invalid common user or role name. It says common user, okay? It's not saying invalid user, it says common user. So cause an attempt is being made to create a common user or role without the correct prefix as specified. See, he's saying that you are creating a common user without the correct prefix. So it is expecting some prefix actually. Okay. So what is it prefix? Okay. So let's add a basic prefix here, and then we will see, and then I will explain you something very, very interesting thing. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, instead of this, I'm going to say C hash this. So now I haven't changed anything, right? So I basically just prefix something because I saw here like, hey, correct prefix is not being used. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this, right? You can see here user C hash disa is created. So I mean, I did not do anything. I just added a prefix, right? So why is it prefix required? Okay, so let's understand this. Okay, see. Oracle over the years had different versions that they have released, right? So before Oracle 2C, so this is one of the versions. So before this, until 11G, we had just one database. Okay, so let me just put this in a comment. So this is, if you want to add multiple comments, then you can basically create something like this. So these things will not get executed. Okay, so you can see that it's grayed out. So this is again important. And if you want like a single, just you have one line, let's say I have one line like this and you want to comment it out, you can say double hyphen. Okay, all right. Okay, good. Let's come back. Okay, so let me clean this up. Let's come back. So before 12C Oracle version, we had only one database. Now what happened after 12C? Right after 12C, Oracle basically had database inside database. Okay, so they would have a database. Now inside this, they would have database again. So let's say this is your database, which is called as a root database. So they have a root database, but inside this root database within database, they'll have another database. They can have as many databases as they want, right? So this is basically like you create a folder in your computer, right? Inside this folder you can another folder and another folder, right? So this is basically the root database. Inside this we have different databases. So these are called pluggable databases. So this databases inside this, they are called pluggable databases. Okay, so this is a root database, and these are basically called as pluggable databases. So pluggable database is basically if you want to write an application program, you basically use a pluggable database. Okay, now why we had a problem with this? Like here when I use this one, we had a problem. Why? Because this was trying to create a user in the root database, and if you want to create a user in the root database, you have to follow certain standards. Okay, so let me show you with a proof, right? So if I, let's say, let me put this. Okay, let me execute this. This basically will tell you where we are. Okay, see, you can see here, right? Connection is CDB dollar root. This basically is that we are in the root database. Okay, we don't. This is like, for example, there is an operating system, right? Within the operating system, there are different applications. So we are trying to do something in the operating system. So it has its own rules and everything. So we don't want to do that in the root database. We want to do in the application database, right? So PDB, pluggable database. So now what we need to do is we need to create a database within we need to create a pluggable database. Okay, so let's first see what are the pluggable databases that we have, right? So that's the first thing. Okay, so you can see here we have two pluggable databases, right? So we have this. we have this. So these are the pluggable databases that we have. So now what we need to do is we need to move into this pluggable database. So let's select this pluggable database because we have read and write right here. So it's better to get into this database. So I'm going to alter to this. So I'll say alter session set container is equal to this one. So again, this is something that as a developer or as a QA, you don't have to worry about any of this, but this is good for learning. Okay. So if you don't want to come back and keep, learning this again, that is still okay. Just listen to this one session and gather as much as possible. Okay, so I'm going to execute this. Okay, so now session is altered, right? So let's execute this session again and see like what is the connection, right? So now we are in the pluggable database, correct? So this is great. Now I will create the user again. Okay, let's use the same user here. Okay, let me clear this up. So now I'm trying to create this identified by this. Now see, user is created, right? So we have the user created here. Okay, so this is great. Now what I'm going to do here is I am going to log into this user. Okay, so let's go back here and let's create a connection. So let's say I this is dev connection I have. So these are okay. The password is Lisa123. Okay, let's test this. Okay. So now look at this, right? Status failed. Invalid username or password, logon denied. So why this is happening, right? So I have given the username, Lisa. Password is same. So still it is basically giving me this issue. Why? Because see, every time anything that you get created, you need to given permission. So the DBA administrator has created the database. The DBA administrator, he has created the user, but he has not provided the permission for the user to log on. Okay, so he need to provide this permission. So let's provide this permission. So I am with the system user. So I'm using grant. Grant is for granting the permission. So I'm trying to connect. So I need to have a connect permission. So I need to also provide resource to Lisa. Okay, this will allow me to connect. Okay, so let me just execute this. So grant succeeded. The other thing we also need to do is we need to provide some space, right? Because if I want to create a table, if I'm logging in as this, I want to create a table, I want to insert the data, it needs some space, right? Storage space. So we need to provide some quota. So for that, again, we use an alter command, alter user Disa. I'll provide a quota, and let's put unlimited quota. So typically here you provide some GBs, but since we are going to use this for everything, so we are going to use unlimited. Okay. Okay. On users, let's go back. See altered. So now let's try again. Okay. I'm going to say this. This is my dev environment. So you might have different users for different use cases, right? So these are right. These are 1, 2, 3. Let me test here. Okay. It again failed. Okay. Now why did it fail again? So let's debug it again. So the user is Lisa. We have created the user. Password is correct, right? We are running on localhost. Like why it is still giving me an error? Okay. So port is correct. See, SID. SID is basically, as I mentioned in my previous session, it's an instance. So SE actually referring to the instance of root database. Okay, but now we are trying to connect to the pluggable database, right? So now instead of SID, I will give that service name. What is that service name? Right? XCPD B1. So this is a service name that we have, right? So now let's test it. See, success. Okay. So I will save the password. Okay. See, this is important, right? So user, what is your user? what is a password, what is a service name. So this is the importance of service name, right? Because we are trying to connect to the pluggable database, not the actual database. Okay. So now we are able to connect. Okay. Now let's save it. Let me cancel it. Now I'm going to go here and I'm going to expand this. Now see, I'm under a DISA, so this is my user. So you can see here, right, the tables, views, and everything. This we will learn earlier in the upcoming session. So right now there are no tables here, right, because we did not create any table, correct? So let's uh, let's do one thing. So here we have given the connect permissions, right? So now let's try to create a table. So I'm going to say create table emp id number. Okay, right? So let me execute this, right? So I have the employee table created here. Okay, so let's do a describe table emp. Okay, so we just do a describe, right? Okay, so let's see. Okay, we have the ID and table. Okay, so this is good. Now we are able to kind of create. Now there are other permissions that we would need. So what we will do here for the time being is we will provide ourselves with all the DB access because we need to create materialized view and all those things. So instead of we will be given when you go into a project, they create a rule and then basically they give you access to a database and everything. But we since this is a one-time activity and something that is taken care by the DBA. So we don't want to spend too much time on it. So we just wanted to ensure that we have all the permissions required. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grant DBA to DISA. So this means that DISA will now act like a DBA. Okay. So let's execute this. So grant is succeeded. Now I'm going to close this. I don't need to save anything, right? So let's drop this table. Okay, we don't want this table. We are just looking at this tables to see like if we have all the permissions or not. Okay, all right. So now we are done with the connections. Now we are able to connect. We have seen the permissions. We have all the permissions that is required for us to start using. And what we will do in the next few sessions is we'll start creating the databases. We'll start creating the what you call the schemas, tables, and everything. And also we'll start with the project. Okay, now don't think now what we'll do is we'll give you a business requirement. This is what we're going to do, and then we'll start building that step by step. So whatever we have learned till now, we'll build it. And then if we have not learned something, then we will learn the concept and then integrate it within the project. So it's not going to be just like you see a video tutorial practice, but you have to build something, so then only you will be able to appreciate the 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 SQL, appreciate the queries that we are writing, and you are able to connect like you're building something. Okay, so we'll start it from the next session. So it's going to be pretty exciting, and I can't wait to see you guys over there. Okay, for now, that is all we have, and I'll see you guys in my next class.